Hi, this is James Jude Courtney, Michael Myers, aka The Shape and Halloween Kills, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat. Don't forget to subscribe, guys.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today's guest that we have on the show, some of you guys will actually probably recognize, although this will be the first time doing a video interview with him. But we have The Shape, aka Michael Myers, in Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. James Jude Courtney is back on the show. Thank you again for coming back on the show today, James.
Good to see you, Pat. Good to see you as always, especially in this really, really distance time we're living in.
Yeah, for sure. Now, and before we kind of get into, some of the main questions, I first just wanted to kind of ask you, it's wild. I realized it, as I was kind of getting, ready for, the interview with you. And I was like, man, last time we had spoke, it was like February or like end of like, January, kind of before everything went, crazy with the world. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just how have you been, this whole time, and what have you kind of been up to, during the whole, pandemic and stuff?
Well, it's as a dear friend of mine pointed out to me, it's a forced sabbatical. It's like I didn't ask for it, you didn't ask for it, but and it depends on how we handle these things. For me, it's been a lot of inner work. Honestly, a lot of like weeding out the things that work in my life, things that don't, sort of taking an assessment of all of the path that I'm on, and especially looking towards how I use this platform, because I've been able to connect with so many beautiful people, and there are certain issues I'm looking at in the world that I'm beginning to realize that with a platform, it's really kind of my responsibility and certainly my privilege to somehow weigh in on things that really affect human beings. I think when we're gifted to have fans and a fan base, or have a constituency if we're political or whatever, to use that for the greater good, and especially because of the people I've met, like yourself and people at the cons and the amazing people I've met. It's really inspired me to just how great and wonderful this human species is, and how many good people there are in the world. And now during this pandemic, how many people are suffering? How many people are suffering with mental health issues? How many people are suffering financially? People aren't eating. So these are the kinds of things I've been thinking about, and so I'm grateful for this time. I really am.
And I think that's that's one thing with you, James. We've known each other for a little bit now, and it's one of the things that I really respect about you is that you're always constantly keeping in touch with the fans, and really appreciative, like you said, of everybody. And I think that being this year without really having like those cons, and like you said, a lot of people, whether it's like mental health issues, things like that,
Right.
we're able to provide, even if it's just like a small little like moment of brightness for like a person, just by like replying to a comment or something on like Instagram or social media and stuff like that. So, and not everyone does, not everyone does that. I mean, not necessarily their fault, but I think it's, it's cool that you take that all into perspective, and, you're pretty interactive with all the fans and stuff like that.
Well, I appreciate that. It's really my pleasure. Honestly, man, it's one of the great joys of my life is meeting the fans and getting to know them, because there's a shared passion, and as I said to you before, I believe I have found that horror fans, amongst all the peoples in the world, are the kindest, most considerate, courteous. They're just genuinely good people, and so it's really one of the great joys of my life to meet people, to sign autographs, take pics with people. Like when I get recognized at the post office, or at the UPS store, or I go to pick up my truck at the mechanics, and he's like, "Oh, dude, man, my buddy's on so, and would you please sign a picture, or would you take a pic with him?" And that, I mean, it just brings me joy, man. I mean, so I'm the beneficiary of all this, truly.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. Like I said, it's it's super cool that you're just such a genuine like person, and as you can see, I know a lot of people appreciate that too. So one of the things, well, I guess like the main things, we obviously we want to talk a little, Halloween here. And, it sucks that unfortunately we weren't able to see Halloween Kills this year. I know a lot of people were really looking forward to it. And now we'll be getting it this upcoming October. But we did get, the new trailer that dropped, to kind of tide people over a little bit. And one of the things that, watching that trailer that I think I'm most looking forward to in the new film is, you just get to, at least from what it looks like in the trailer, we get to see Michael Myers versus the town of Haddonfield. Because at one point you see like Allison and she's by like, the hospital or ambulance, and, people, it looks like they're almost like, rioting and stuff like that. And I think that's really interesting because up to this point in the Halloween franchise, we haven't really seen that. The only thing that comes to my mind, the top of my head, is probably Halloween 4, when you have the couple like rednecks, they get together and they kind of form this little like mob, and they go after Michael Myers like a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's not anywhere from what it looks like just in the trailer, that what we're gonna be getting to see in Halloween Kills. That's probably, I would say, one of the things from that trailer that I'm most like looking forward to.
Well, I can say this. We're not allowed to say very much,
Yeah.
certainly. But I take Jamie's lead, and because Jamie is one of the producers. She's in on, she's like in on, exactly where we are and how much we reveal, and so the one thing she brought up is, wherein we have, in Halloween 2018, we examined, alcoholism, addiction, familial pathology, those kinds of issues, and, female empowerment. In Halloween Kills, they are definitely those things we look at. We're also looking at mob mentality. David Gordon Green and Danny McBride are really, really bright guys, and they have a deep social conscience. And and I find, and it's been proven to me to be so true that comic writers, comedians have greater insight into the human psyche, the human condition, than almost any other art form, because they see irony in everything, and that's where they find their humor. And so, like, you go to Comedy Central, you don't need to make stuff up because the idiots in the world are already doing it for you. You know what I mean? So and so in this particular script, it's everything is heightened in Halloween Kills. I mean, it really is. It's for the people who liked and loved 2018. Dog, Kills it's on steroids.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned when we talked in like February. Yeah, you were saying, yeah, it was like Halloween Kills is basically Halloween 2018 on speed or like steroids or whatever. And just from from the little bits that we've seen so far, you can definitely get that vibe. And I know, yeah, obviously can't go into we're gonna stay away from like spoilers, but the other thing in the trailer, which I know I was kind of surprised, I guess, a little bit, but at the same time, I guess they wanted to do something for the fans, where we, waiting another year. But it was awesome to actually get glimpses of the mask in the upcoming movie, because I think one of the biggest questions at the end of the film, where you were, or at least what it seemed like, were burning, in the fire, and everyone's like, man, what's the mask going to look like? Is it going to be like completely melted, or, all these different theories. And we finally got to see a couple of glimpses of it, in the trailer. And it looks like, it's kind of like half, burnt. And at one point we actually, see it like lying on the ground. So I guess, did you, as far as, what the mask looks like in this film, Christopher Nelson like worked on it, but did you have any say, or kind of like, what was the process of creating the look of the mask for like this film?
That was really Chris and David. They really went back and forth and back and forth. I was always in touch with Chris, Chris, and I speak with David, periodically as well. And Chris would send me updates and, ask my opinion, but basically it was between him and David. And, he knew where he was going to go with it anyhow. And David's really smart this way. He knows how to get really, really talented people and just let them do their shit. You know, I mean, just let him do what they do, man. He doesn't get in people's way. He doesn't try to, he's not overbearing or controlling. He's like a conductor of an orchestra, man. He wants to pull the best out of every instrument and the best out of every player. And so I probably had more input for ends. And, you know, of course, we won't even see that until, you know, October 2022. We haven't even shot it yet, but I know where it's going, of course. And, so I had more input probably on that level because when we were shooting Halloween Kills, Chris and I were talking about where we're going and how that's going to affect, you know, but for Halloween Kills, I mean, Christopher Nelson is such an intuitive artist, and he has such a deep knowledge of horror and such a deep knowledge of the Halloween franchise. I mean, like on set, Ryan Turek and Christopher Nelson. I mean, it would be a battle of the who knows more about Halloween. And it was really great. My buddy Zach Myers, the guitarist songwriter for Shinedown, really proud of him, man. They just tied Tom Petty for the Billboard's all-time top 10 list, and they've got like 27 #1 hits. But Zach came on set. It's a closed set, so it's, you know, not many people get on. But when your name's Michael Myers, and you're a rock star, you get to come in. And it was really fun watching those two banter because, dude, Zach Myers and Christopher Nelson they just were nerding out on Halloween, and I was blown away at the facts these guys had. I mean, boom, 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 like, dog. I mean, it was like a, you know, vault of knowledge and, you know, swimming around in these two guys' heads. It was really cool.
Yeah, no, I loved, you know, what he did with the original mask for, you know, for 2018. And I think that's always been one of the biggest things, you know, in the Halloween franchise is just the look of the mask, because, you know, there's been some versions where it's like, you know, and I know every director, I think, kind of wants to do their own take, but a lot of people's favorites, obviously, like the original. And I think 18 did a good job of, you know, looking pretty close to the original. It was just, you know, like aged a little bit more and stuff like that. And so when I saw the glimpse of this, I was really excited to see it. I love like the, you know, the half burnt look and stuff like that. So that's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, this is now, you know, you've officially completed your second Halloween, you know, film with Halloween Kills. Now, how would you say the experience, you know, compares to working on Halloween 2018, and like, I guess, like, what was your biggest, you know, taking away from working on Kills?
Well, you know, man, I've never had this experience before. When I came back, virtually everybody, almost everybody, there were a few people like Steadicam was operated by Stewie last time, but Stewie couldn't make it. And, you know, there were a couple of people who couldn't make it in terms of the crew, but getting back with the cast, the same director, same producers. So literally it was like no time had passed. You know, there was just a natural progression. Everything was the same. And so, you know, I was in the same spiritual place that, you know, that I go to for the character. And so we just picked up where we left off. And again, I've never had that experience before, man. It's, you know, usually there's that, you know, getting to know period when you're on a new movie and you're meeting new people and you're figuring out how to work with people and learning people's rhythms. And so there was a lot of shorthand going on. You know, there's a lot of, like, you know, people completing people's sentences and, you know, nods and looks that just told everybody what to do. I mean, it was seamless. It was really, really awesome.
And that's with this, you know, with this whole series too. You know, it's crazy that, because I'm trying to think, like, off the top of my head, I don't think anything's jumping to me like right now, but where, you know, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, it's all taking place, you know, in that same night. And plus, you know, you guys got all that cast back, pretty much all the cast back. So I think, you know, that definitely, like, kind of just like helps with that continuity. So that's awesome, man. Was there, you know, have you thought about what after this series, you know, ends? You know, I know you guys still have to film Halloween Ends, so, you know, we still got you for like a little bit more. But have you thought about what you want to do, you know, after this Halloween series ends? And, you know, would you want to play Michael Myers again? You know, maybe even if it's with someone completely like different, like a different set of directors?
Wow. I mean, that's a great question, Pat. It really is. I, at this point, am am assuming that this will be it for me, that I'll do 3 and that will be it. If it were to pass that somebody wanted to do an extended, or go and do another Halloween and bring me back, that have a lot to do with the director and the script. And I mean, there's so many things you have to work out, because I wouldn't want to do anything less than what we're doing. And I think David Green set the bar pretty dang on high, man. I mean, he set the bar high. So he's one. I mean, no, he's not one. He is the finest director I've ever worked with. And I've worked with Ron Howard and I'm a list of really, really excellent directors. I've never worked with anybody like David before. And so to capture that lightning in a bottle again, I'd have to be very judicious, because I wouldn't want in any way to muddy the water of something that I feel so grateful to be a part of right now.
Yeah, just to do something just to do it, or for for like a paycheck. You want to do it because it's something that you're passionate about, sounds like.
Oh yeah, man. And I have so much respect for the series. And so I will never disparage another Halloween movie. Not, I mean, it's a minor miracle when a film gets made anyhow. Everybody has their right to have their creative, perspective, and to paint the way they like to paint, to sing the way they like to sing. So, but seeing, when you put the collective talent together that came together to do 2018 Kills and we'll do Halloween Ends, that's, it's hard to do. It's hard to capture, to put together that many talented people who can work in harmony together like that. So again, it would be out of respect for the franchise, for the 3 that we do, respect for the character, and at this point in the game, I can afford not to take a paycheck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not about the paycheck at all for me. So yeah.
No, I think that's fair enough, and that's cool that you have that respect for the franchise, where it's like you're not just gonna do it to just do it, basically. A question that because this is something that I think about like a lot with it's different projects and stuff like that, with you guys finishing Halloween Kills, and obviously things got pushed back because of the the crazy times that we're being in right now. Has there been like any discussion to be like, to want to go back and do additional shots, or maybe, change something in the film? Because I know, like with myself, it's like if I finish something, sometimes, it's like maybe like a month later or something, I go back, I look at it, and I'm like, you know what, I maybe would have like done this like a little bit differently, or maybe I would have like put that in there. Was there any kind of like, or has there been like any kind of discussion of like doing that, where you guys, the film's now pushed back to October 2021?
Actually, no. We did pick up shots on 2018, because although the ending was really magical and musical, the original ending we shot, it just didn't fit into the stream that that David and Danny had created. So so we went back and reshot the end, in that for a very good reason. I'm glad we did. I think it was perfect. For Halloween Kills, no, we're doing no pickup shots. We're doing no reshoots. We got everything we needed. But again, when you come together with people who've worked together like this before, and David, by the way, is constantly rewriting. I mean, we're doing scenes and we're looking at this going, okay. And he pulls out his laptop, and while we're talking, he's tapping away, and he's like, okay, how about this? And like, good, let's do it, man. And, and he solicits and elicits creativity from everywhere, every quarter. So, it's a living, breathing being that we're embodying there. Like, it's molding and shaping and forming as we're moving along. We learned how to do that together in 2018. It's like a hot knife and butter at this point, man.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned, I think actually it was in our first, or the interview like earlier this year, you had mentioned that original ending. I really hope at some point we get to see like a release of that original ending, just because it would be, I'm a big person with behind the scenes kind of stuff and deleted things and things like that. I really hope at some point we get a chance to see that the ending. I know I've actually, I think, seen quite a few fans online saying that they want to see it, whether it's like some re-release of like the film, or maybe even once the 3 of them are all done, and if you guys release like a the trilogy, like together or whatever.
Right.
That'd be really cool if we could see that original ending at some point, if it's somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. Yeah, I would imagine if it did, it would be either in the the Blu-ray for Halloween Ends, or even after that. I mean, you never know. It's that's David's prerogative, and he has just a really really great instinct for that. Um,
Fingers crossed. Let's see. And so again, I know can't go into super details, but just from some of the characters that we know are going to be, like in the film, several of the characters themselves are returning from, the original like Halloween film and stuff. So I just wanted to ask you, which like character or characters did you personally yourself enjoy the most getting to see, come back into this film? Obviously don't, can't go into like their story arcs for this movie, but just like which character did you like to see come make a return in, Halloween Kills, I guess, like the most?
well, I'm a little prejudiced here, but I also really enjoyed the fact that Nancy Stevens came back. I'm prejudiced here a little bit because she's my friend. I've known her for decades, right? So, but more than that, her character is, hers is a character people remember. It's a very clear character, even for people who watch movies and don't remember every character and don't remember lines and don't remember scenes. You'll remember Nancy Stevens if you've seen, if you've seen her work in Halloween. And so I'm in the Halloween franchise. So, and it was great working with her. I mean, she's a consummate professional, and yeah, it was just really exciting to work with her. We had a lot of fun together.
I would say, I imagine there was probably some interesting like stories or moments just like working on set, having her back on, like set where it's been, a while for her since she's done like a Halloween movie. So I'm sure there was probably some interesting, conversations, stuff like that going on while you guys were filming.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it was a great reunion for everybody that was coming back, and with Jamie and all the people coming back. Though I did not see Jamie during Halloween Kills, and it was interesting. We were going to get to see each other for the photo shoot at the end, for the poster and all that kind of stuff. And they chose to digitally separate us, to shoot us separately and to make a composite of the posters and everything. And so we were both looking forward to, I mean, there's a very good reason for us not to have a lot of dialogue and hang out and, while we're doing this film. I mean, she's playing a really deep role. She's got a lot of moving parts, and and I've got to keep my focus. And so we give each other that space. But when she was doing her photo shoot and then was going to fly out that night, and I came in right after her to do it, but they had actually separated us enough, and she finished fast enough, and she was running around going, "Where's James Jude Courtney? Where's James Jude Courtney?" And when I walked in, she'd already left. And so we texted back and forth and like, maybe this is for the best. Maybe this is best that we don't see each other in person again until we meet on Halloween Ends, So I think the gods have deemed that. But I got to tell you, man, it was so much fun having some of those old characters come back and getting to know them and seeing them as older people, which is really kind of crazy.
Yeah, and even some of the characters, like particularly like Anthony Michael Hall, I was different actor from like the original film, but it's still cool to see the character of like Tommy Doyle like coming back in like the film like as well. So it definitely, from what we've seen in the trailer so far, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun for current fans of like 2018 and this like series, but also just like the original series with some of those characters that we haven't seen in a little bit. So
yeah,
and I'm looking forward to, hopefully, I imagine probably maybe still have to wait a little bit, but I'm looking forward to when we get to see that first, the poster for Halloween Kills.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be good stuff.
And last time we talked about one of my favorite scenes, and you mentioned it was like one of the most intense scenes for you in Halloween 2018. The end of the film where Michael, everything's burning around him, and we talked like a little bit about that. Is there any scenes, that just come off like the top of your head without going into detail that you think tops the intensity of that moment in the upcoming like Halloween Kills?
I would say yes. That's all I'm going to give you, buddy.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, but I just remember, us talking about that, and just like, how you explain like the behind the scene, the logistics of, the fire and everything like that. So I was just like, I wonder, I mean, I would think so, just the way that this thing's being marketed, and how crazy it sounds like it's supposed to be. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you that. So
Yeah, it's definitely they've upped the ante on everything.
I feel
And
you have to. I mean,
yeah,
it's just kind of a natural thing. It's like, you get a sequel in a franchise. A lot of people, especially in the horror genre, it's just like your fans naturally a lot of times just expect, more from like, from the sequel. So
yeah, but it's not more for being more's sake. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's really they've built this trilogy like you would build a 3-act screenplay, and so it's going somewhere. It means something. It's not just you know yeah. I mean it's not it's done with respect and intelligence and it was brutal, man. We and for all of us. I mean, not just me. Physically, it was brutal for me, and psychologically, I go to where I go, and that's my wheelhouse, man. That's that in those moments, when I'm working on these Halloween films. Generally, when I work, anyhow, I feel zero stress, zero anxiety. Like the world is perfect in my bubble when I'm working on a movie, but specifically working on Halloween because it's such a well-oiled machine with such incredibly talented people. And, and David gave me the freedom to go where I needed to go, without poisoning or trying to control so, the natural progression of a character, natural arcs of character and story are really, well, it would be natural for the second act to really for shit to start flying,
yeah, no, that and like I said, yeah, that it definitely, it makes sense just to naturally get like heightened, and then as we get to Halloween ends, um, obviously that the hype is real. A lot of people were, like I said, we're super excited to see this, back in October. We have to wait a little bit longer, but, I know it's going to be worth it, once we do finally get to see this film. Yeah. If you had to compare this movie to any other sequel out there, what would it be and why?
I'll demur on that. I think I don't want to give anything away.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too easy to create inference. You know what I mean? And I think it best that the fans, because it's so amazing how the fans pick apart and intellectualize and philosophize and I mean, they have a philosophical perspective of this, and they're trying and the opinions are really strong, and I think that's beautiful when a work of art creates that kind of dynamic, when people do dialogue over it. That's the idea, So I think let the fans conjecture right now, and then it'd be really fascinating, to do another one of these after Halloween Kills comes out, and to see
dissect everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of times it was, Halloween Kills has been brutal for you, for everyone else, physically, and you being, a stunt actor. I'm just curious, what have been throughout, I mean, not even necessarily just like, the Halloween franchise, but what have been some of your worst injuries, from working in your career up to this point?
I mean, there's lots of bumps and bruises and, torn thing, a couple of surgeries like knee surgery and hand surgeries, 3 hand surgeries. I think that was the worst. I had to go through a glass window and I knew I was going to get cut, and, but the job was to go through the glass window. And so, when you go through a glass window, it's not plate glass, because plate glass will shear and you can sever arteries that way. So what they use is safety glass, and then they put knockers on the on the glass, and what they do is they time it when you're going to go through. Like either you're going through forward or backward, it doesn't matter. When you're going through, they time the knockers to break right when you hit, so it looks like you broke the glass, but you're still going to get cut. I mean, because the glass breaks into small chunks, and they're cubes, and they're sharp cubes. And interestingly, I've seen a guy run face first into safety glass and get knocked out because the knockers didn't go. You know, they're little radio controlled knockers. And so I went over to the special effects guy and I said, "Hey man, you got 2 knockers on that window. I'd like 4." He goes, "Trust me, man, they're both going to go." And I was like, "All right, here's the deal, dude. If I bust my face or bust my skull on the thing, you're the first dude I'm coming after." And he's like, "I'll put 4 on." And it turns out that the 2 he had on didn't go. So I would have gotten a concussion out of that. You know what I mean? So, but when I went through, I got a bunch of glass in this hand here. I've had 3 surgeries on this hand. And, you know, so there I am, like, and you know, so the nurses, like right on set, the nurse is irrigating and yanking glass out. And so, you know, the water they're irrigating with, or the saline they're irrigating with, it makes this pool of blood like 10 feet wide because it's a lot of water and it's all red. And I'm not gonna say the film. So the lead actor walks up and he fainted. he saw that blood and he freaking fainted. But so, you know, but that's part of it. I mean, that's where people have to understand the mental discipline it takes for people to do that kind of work, because you have to release the fear of injury. You have to stay incredibly focused, and even if you know you're going to take a thump, that's why it's this very special breed of people who do this kind of work.
Yeah, I was going to say what you were saying right there. Kind of, yeah. What you were saying is that, you know, it takes a special kind of person. Because I imagine if you're not, you know, you're not focused and, you know, you're not paying attention, you could really end up hurting yourself if you're not prepared to just, you know, you don't like. You're not worried about getting injured or whatever. So you do something like that and like you could really end up hurting yourself. Like, am I right on that?
Oh, absolutely. And more importantly, you could end up injuring somebody else.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
you know, so when you're working with a group of professional stunt people, you have to rely on the fact that everybody else has those, you know, those nerves as well. It's very much like, and I'm not comparing myself to a Navy SEAL by any means. I mean, those guys, you know, special forces guys are unique unto themselves, and you know, guys and girls, and they're but there's a certain thing that happens in brain chemistry, and you know, so the difference between, they've done studies in the military where, you know, they study the heart rate and brain chemistry and brain movement of regular Army and then special forces, for instance. And at rest, the regular soldiers, you know, the heartbeats are relaxed, the brain activity is relaxed, you know, cortisol levels are low. But as soon as they're called into combat, the cortisol levels spike, the heart rate increases, you know, the brain activity changes, you know, blood pressure goes up. Well, special forces guys are the exact opposite. When they're at rest, they're itching to go, so their cortisol levels are higher. Their heart rate is, I mean, they're like horses in a stall, like at the gate, ready to go. As soon as they're called into action, everything goes down. Heart rate goes down, cortisol levels go down, brain activity gets really acute and clear, relaxed. That's the kind of mentality you need to be able to do, you know, especially when you have more than one person involved in a stunt, when you have fights or multiple cars and vehicles. That's the kind of mentality that a person has to have be an effective and good stuntman. And I mean, there's not a lot of those people around, really. I mean,
I know. I remember, you know, initially like talking to you and asking you about like how you got the role of, you know, Halloween 2008, you know, Michael Myers in Halloween 2018, and you just saying that, you know, they were like, hey, you know, we need a very specific, you know, type of guy for this kind of role. So like, obviously I can't just find, you know, you guys just on every corner. It takes a, you know, a special like person to do these, you know, these certain things. So.
Well, and there's a training too. I mean, you know, a lot of guys really wisely, you know, early in my career, a lot of my friends who were actor stuntmen as well, and, you know, very, very good actors, Alex Daniels, Merritt Yanka. There were a lot of guys who were really good actors and also really good stuntmen. And especially back then, people saw you as neither fish nor fowl if you were an actor stuntman. That's a stunt guy who thinks he can act, or an actor who thinks he can do stunts. But, they a lot of people don't get that you can play basketball and baseball and football and be good at all three, So, so back then, those guys, the two guys I mentioned, and a lot of other guys I knew, Chip Campbell, a lot of those guys, made the choice to be stuntmen because they knew they could get in, start working really fast. The competition level on the acting side is much, much stiffer, because the stunt side is really a good old boy network. You get out there, people, you work out with people, and as they get to know you and trust you, they keep hiring the same people they trust, and so you build these little fraternities. The thing of it is to be a good stuntman, you've got to train. You've got to learn to do all that. You've got to not only learn these skills, but you've got to practice these skills. And then on the acting side, I mean, it's even tougher. I mean, if you're a natural athlete and you have what it takes to be a stuntman, you do what any athlete does. You work hard, you train. Acting is you get really deep. I mean, it's a lot of psychological introspection. It's a lot of emotional processing. It's a lot of studying of human nature. So there's a lot more things that go on. And so to spend the time to do both of those, to cultivate both of those talents are, not many people want to spend the time to do it. And frankly, some people don't enjoy acting, and some people don't enjoy doing stunt work. Some people, even though they're really good athletes, are like, man, I'm not going to go home with a contusion. I'm not, you do it. You jump off that bridge,
And that's fair. Yeah. Not everyone, like you said, not everyone just wants to, do some of those, those certain things. So that makes sense.
Well, I like the feeling of, and I guess anybody who's, most athletes I know, I like the feeling of being bumped and bruised and after a ball game, or after a sparring match, or, I love the feeling of my body, because then I know I've left it out on the field,
Yeah, exactly. I want to go back quickly to like Halloween 2018, because this was something that I was like, I knew it was kind of a big thing with that that film. Some of the fans, one aspects of the movie that some fans, where I remember seeing, were a little like split on, were the whole Dr. Sartain role, just with like what happened with the character. I guess I just want to get kind of your thoughts on it, looking back on like the film now.
Well, that was the whole Sartain thing was, it was creativity. There's a lot of experimenting in creativity. I mean, so you run with your gut, you do what you explore and create and mold and shape, and sometimes it comes out exactly like you think it's going to. Sometimes it comes out even better. Sometimes it comes out different than you thought and interesting, and sometimes it just doesn't work. I can say this: if David and Ryan and Universal thought that the Sartain thing didn't work, it wouldn't have stayed in the film. But there's an interesting. I think there's a very valid reason for having the Sartain character and what that character injected into the storyline. For me, it works. It works. And it worked for me, most importantly, it worked for me as an actor, on the day. It was very much a part of the machine that I got to be, one of the cogs in the machine that was running so smoothly. And, just like a lot of things, some of the stuff he shot's there, some of it's not. Some of the stuff we did is there, some of the stuff with it. I mean, that when you have incredibly talented editor, Tim Alverson, I mean, that guy, he's editing from day one. He's in there editing from day one. And his rough cut is pretty damn close to the final cut. Like, and I was down in Charleston with Tim and David looking at various versions of certain scenes and, for Halloween Kills. And I also spent time in the editing room with Tim when we were shooting Halloween Kills. And, the understanding of the nuance and, what shots to use and what shots not to use, what to put in, what to leave out. So that's a long answer, but I think for me, at least, the Sartain thing, as it ended up in the film, it works.
I think from what I remember, seeing with some people was that they were kind of like took it almost as if they were trying to replace the Dr. Loomis character from like the original film, and I think that's why like some people were like, oh, like I don't know how I really feel about this because of obviously Dr. Loomis and Donald Pleasance was such a beloved character, in like the first Halloween 2, I mean like the Halloween series in general. So I think that was a thing where they're like, oh, are they trying to create like another Dr. Loomis character with Dr. Sartain? Like for me, like the film, like you said, a lot of like some of the things they do make sense, and it's like, oh, that's probably why like how Michael ended up breaking free from the bus and stuff like that. But that was something that I remember seeing fans saying like, oh, is this like supposed to be the new Dr. Loomis character?
I never saw it as the new Dr. Loomis. I think it's whenever you have, I mean, look at anything in science. Anything in science that a great scientist has done, or any kind of investigating or experimenting, or any achievements in science, you're always going to have more great minds come behind and expound on that work, expand on it, like dig deeper into it. I mean, science, just like everything, medicine, everything it's a living, breathing thing. It's a dynamic.
Yeah.
So I think it would be natural for especially to deal with an entity like Michael Myers. I would think it would be, I would, a good friend of mine recently passed away. Alan Blank was the former chief of staff of the Cedars-Sinai Psychiatric Ward. I spent a lot of time with him. He's a brilliant man, and incredibly inquisitive. And the stories he would tell about like sitting in group therapy with literally like 15 murderers who weren't just murderers, they were psychopathic, and and the conversations he had, and how the dynamics of the group would work. And he was always looking for new information, and part of that information was how do I find ways to remedy these horrible diseases, psychopathic behaviors, sociopathic behaviors, homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation. So I think it would be completely natural for a bright doctor to want to do exactly what Sartain did. And then to go further, that where he went with his own pathology, that's another story.
Yeah. Yeah, when he ends up putting on the mask and everything like that was, so it was definitely, that was one of the aspects I was curious to see what your perspective on it was, just because that was something I remember a lot of fans were kind of like, we're split on like how they they felt on it, and it's cool to go back and examine it afterwards. We talked a little bit earlier in the interview about just like interacting with like the fans and stuff like that. You've obviously when we were still like had the conventions like last year and past years, you've met a lot of people, you've seen a lot of different merchandise. What has been some of your favorite things that people have brought to you to sign at like some of these cons?
Oh wow, man! There was so my favorite thing to sign is because it's such a compliment is when I sign people's bodies, and then they run right down to the tattoo artist and have it tattooed on. I mean, dude, how cool is that? You know what I mean? Who gets to have their name tattooed on other people's arms and backs, and and then there've never been any unmentionable parts signed, and but that to me is, and then I love especially when when there's a rendering of the mask already tattooed on, and then I'll do an autograph underneath it or next to it or whatever like that. That to me is that would have to be, I think, my that would be the top. But there's all kinds of cool stuff. But it's mostly pretty much like knives and masks, and then the pictures that the 8x10s and posters, and it's kind of weird too. It's like I actually don't even have a poster. It's just so. I mean, I have pics, and I have the promo bills from Universal, and I have lots of stuff. But I never ended up with a poster. I don't, I don't know how that happened.
What is this, guys? Come on, you got to get James. You got to get him, a couple of these posters so he can have. Oh.
I tell you what, send me 2 posters. I'll sign one and send it back to you.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Now, kind of tying into another question that I had earlier, being a stuntman, you obviously have to stay in good shape. So I was curious, what is your, like kind of like training like regimen just to, to stay in like good shape?
I'm in the gym 6 days a week, and I do I warm up with high intensity interval training. I train two body parts a day. And then aside from that, I run stairs and I swim. And during this pandemic, I haven't traveled as much, but I really love hiking in the mountains. Um, I am in the pool almost every day, and even now I'm in the pool almost every day. And my pool is like what 54 degrees now, but I'm in it, man. I get in it, and it feels great. It feels freaking awesome. Um, and so, I mean, I'm definitely, and there's training which I do consistently, and it's a part of my mental health as well to train my body. Um, and then there's the level of training you go into before a film. Then all of a sudden diet changes, training changes. I get physical therapy like myofascial release twice a week. I get acupuncture. I go in and out of chiropractic. I get massages on occasion. Sometimes I do it a lot. Um, so in addition to the acupuncture, I do, Chinese herbs. I do, amino acids, and so I take very good care of my body. When I have my blood work done twice a year, I'm looking at way more indicators than general blood work. I'm paying for extra things, and using natural medicine, herbs and such things. I keep my testosterone levels high and my HGH levels high, and I keep my estradiol low, and I make sure my blood sugar levels are low, below 100. And, there's all these little things that keep us young and strong and viable. And, to me, this is my instrument. And if I beat the hell out of it and don't take it to the body shop every once in a while, it's just going to look like a junker. And I don't want to drive around in a junker, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, you only get, you only get one. So I mean, you definitely got to take care of it. And like you said, in your case, your career, that's how you do your job. So you obviously, want to be able to, take care of it and do this for as long as possible. So it's a lot of stuff, man. It's like I just like can't imagine like this year, especially during like the pandemic, and I'm really, happy with it. Myself, I've actually kept myself in a pretty, strict like exercise like workout like routine. And so like right now I'm probably in some of the like the best shape that I've been in like the past like couple years. And but I can't even imagine like not even doing anything near like the level like some of the stuff that like you mentioned. But so I was just kind of curious because I know a lot of people during this pandemic that's people have been focusing on like working out and stuff like that. So I wanted to see kind of what you do.
Man, I honestly, I think the way I treat my body is the way I wish all people treated their bodies. I mean, we genetically have the capacity to live to what they call the Hendrix line, to live to 120 years old. And, frankly, I don't care when I die. And I'd love to go out in a blaze of glory when I do. But for me, being virile and strong and having my intellect and my wits about me are really important. The quality of life is really important. And for me, I find joy in training my body and challenging my body. And I'm working the myofascial released physical therapist I'm working with happens to be he's about to become a colonel in the Army Reserve, and so he's a warrior, and he gets what warriors do to their bodies clearly, and so he has really helped me move injuries that have been stuck in my body for 10, 20, 30 years. And acupuncture, for instance, my brother's an acupuncturist, so I'm lucky I get free acupuncture. But he has a part of his practice is IVF, in vitro fertilization, and they found that when couples do IVF, acupuncture increases the efficacy by 80%. That's substantial. So when you look at what acupuncture does, what what healing your body does, what taking proper nutrition into your body. I spend a lot of money on food, and I really feel bad that some people can't. But I haven't eaten a McDonald's hamburger, or I haven't gone to a fast food restaurant in 20 years. I just don't do it. I mean, I'd get sick if I did, because I eat really, really quick. And you know what I find, man? It's crazy. Because I eat such high quality food, because I eat really quality meats and fish and vegetables, organic vegetables, I don't eat as much. So even though that's the food that I buy and eat is more expensive, I don't eat as much or as often, because I don't need to, because my body has the nutrition it needs.
Yeah, no, that's something that, I mean, I've only really barely touched the surface, but like, throughout this like past year, I've definitely switched some of my like eating habits and stuff like that, making sure not to eat as late at night, and just different things like that. And it's crazy the differences that you notice, same with like, what you're saying, as far as like some things, like I have like really like cut out soda and stuff like that. And it's just crazy. Like when you do have some of those foods or those drinks and stuff like that, and you haven't had it for a while, just the effect that it has in your body, because it's it's not used to having that again there. So
It's amazing. I wish. In fact, I had Ryan Turk's dad is Mark is a really, really, really cool guy. I love Ryan Turk's family. I mean, he comes from a beautiful, beautiful family. So he and I had talked about at one point doing some podcast stuff, because Ryan's dad is a trainer, and buff, man. The dude is his guns are like Ryan Turk's guns. I mean, that's why when I met him, I was like, now I know where Ryan got those guns from. I mean, if you see Ryan Turk, man, dude's got some serious, freaking biceps, man. His whole body. I mean, he just trains really hard, and his dad trains really hard. He grew up with that. So we had talked about for a time maybe doing, and maybe this will happen in the future, when all this, as things progress. Again, that goes back to, I've been thinking about ways that I can somehow be a positive influence in this world. And certainly, as you notice, like you said, like going off sodas. Oh, what does that change? That changes the way you feel, the way you think, the way you sleep, how much energy you have. I mean, little shifts and changes like that can really make a huge difference.
for sure. No, and I think all that stuff's like super fascinating. So that'd be, if you guys end up doing it, I'll definitely, have to check that out. That sounds really cool. Um, as far as, kind of, getting ready to wrap, things up here, as far as, the Halloween franchise, it's been around, 40 plus years, which is, crazy to think about. And so we've seen a number of different storylines, continuations. You guys have, kind of your own like thing that you guys are doing right now. Is there, once this ends, is there anywhere in particular you would like to see maybe the story like pick up like down the line, like if someone else like was to do it, like what you would want to see as like a fan?
You mean, so as we go past this trilogy, where
Yeah.
I'd like to see it go?
Yeah.
Um, because I can't even say anything about Halloween Kills, let alone Halloween Ends. I do, and I do have an opinion on that. I really do. I have, because I think this trilogy has been so brilliantly designed. I definitely have an opinion on that, but I wouldn't be able to voice that opinion without giving away
Spoilers.
way too much. I'd be getting a call from Universal, like, Monday, like, dude, like, and it wouldn't even be from Ryan Turek. It'd be from like Universal Studios. It's just some guy in a suit, like, we're suing you, you son of a bitch. Like,
I know, like for me, and I've seen like other fans, it's like, oh, like, you could pick up where, because with like I don't know if you've seen like all the Halloween like films, but like Halloween like Resurrection, with Busta Rhymes, like how that ended with Michael Myers, waking up in the morgue, and we never ended up getting any kind of continuation for that. So I mean, they could do something like that. You had the Rob Zombie universe with the Halloweens,
right.
So yeah, it'd be really cool. I've heard people, fans talking a line about doing like some, I don't know if even if it was like a movie, but almost like a series or like a small limited series of Dr. Loomis when he was kind of younger and leading up to, and maybe like seeing like Michael as like a kid. That would be kind of towards the end of the series. So kind of just seeing like Loomis before he kind of meets Michael, and then when he first kind of meets him and starts working with him. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff, but yeah, no, obviously, yeah, you can't go into super lot of detail. So maybe, maybe the next time we connect and after, the film and stuff comes out, we can get into some of these things a little bit more.
Well,
But
I would suggest that when we do this after Halloween ends is when I can really, unload on the because again, there's a really beautiful arc that David and the whole team has created. I mean, it's a really, really beautiful arc. And of course, Halloween ends because we haven't shot it yet is going to go through the same process that Halloween Kills did. We're going to get there on the day, and then things are going to look good, and we're going to morph and shift and change. And what do you think? And all that. So, yeah. So we'll look forward to a few of these, man.
and actually, I totally one thing that I just remembered now. I wanted to get your opinion on just because it has to do with just with Halloween Kills getting pushed back. What are your thoughts on the whole? Obviously, right now it's supposed to Halloween Kills is supposed to be it's supposed to be coming out in theaters. We've seen recently like WB and stuff like that announcing that a lot of their films or all of them for 2021 are going to be coming streaming and theaters at the same time. I'm so torn on this subject because like myself, like I'm a big movie theater guy. I love going to the theaters and getting that, that full like experience. But at the same time, the fact that we'll still be able to get to see these movies, even though it's not going to be in a theater. And some people, can't go to the theaters right now. So I'm so torn because, I love the theater experience, but I also want to see these new movies. So I guess just like what is your your take on this whole kind of situation, like the streaming versus the theatrical experience?
I think there are some films that absolutely have to be seen in the theater. And even if you don't have the opportunity and you see them on a big screen TV, or even if you see them on a small monitor, but that's all you can get, you still get to see the film. I think the vast majority of films made don't necessarily need a theater, and especially now in the day of, big screen TVs being so inexpensive, everybody has them. I mean, I think it's fair for a lot of films to stream and do theater at the same time. Halloween is not one of those films. It's not one of those films. You really need the shared experience because what happens, especially in a good horror film, your cortisol levels spike. I mean, the brain chemistry and body chemistry that changes in the audience in a horror film, in a good horror film, or even a bad one when you're laughing. You know what I mean? Because like, oh, that's pretty stupid. Even that. But the shared experience, like all these biochemical receptors are being fired and then intermingling with everybody else's biochemistry. So when you're in a theater of, like a proper theater filled with people who are there because they know what they want to see and they're going to see it, that experience, a shared experience, heightens beyond all. I mean, it just takes the meter through the roof. So I would be very opposed to, in fact, when they were deciding, what they were going to do with Halloween Kills, I got a call. I was on a conference call with Ryan Turek and Ryan Freeman over at Trancas, and and they were like, "Hey, guy, Jim, we're thinking about postponing a year. What are your thoughts on that?" I was like, "Dude, I am so supportive of that. I mean, this film needs to be seen in the theaters." And the thing is, like some hardcore fans who go 3, 4, 5, 10 times back to the theater for that same experience, right?
Exactly.
So to deny the fans that experience, I think that'd be wrong. And again, there's tons of movies. I mean, I go through periods where I watch lots of movies, and I go through periods depending on my creative perspective and my spiritual perspective. Sometimes I cut myself away from all media. It depends on where I am in my head, in my heart.
Yeah.
But there are definitely, like, for instance, I've got a copy. One of my favorite old films is Lawrence of Arabia. David Lean film, and I've got it on my DVR, and I'm going to watch it soon again, but there's nothing like seeing a film like that on an epic screen. It's an epic film on an epic screen. And I think these Halloweens are epic in that way. They need to be big.
For sure. I don't know if I believe I might have mentioned it to you with the first like Halloween. Like I ended up getting to see that film like 3 or 4 weeks before it kind of like hit, a lot of the across like America.
Yeah.
I got to see it ahead of time, and it was at like Cinema Sala, which really sucks because I think they just like went out of business like this like past year. So unfortunately, I don't think they're not going to be able to do another screening of Halloween. But like when I went to go see it, Andy, was there, Ryan Turk was there. And so it was awesome, getting to see a new Halloween movie. It's been several years with all these diehard Halloween fans. And then after the movie afterwards, like we had, like Andy and Ryan were kind of hanging around and talking to the fans like afterwards. Like you said, it's just such, and other movies too, it's just such a experience, like even coming out of the film and like, being able to talk to people about what you just saw like on the screen, and someone that's so passionate about the film.
Yeah, definitely. So there's no way this will end. And I really hope they don't stream it while it's in the theaters. I really hope they do, or they stream it towards the end of the run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I really would want to encourage people. I know at the end of this, next year, money's gonna be tight for a lot of people, for sure. Shoot, I haven't worked all year. A lot of people haven't worked, and but I would really encourage the fans to go to the theater when you can. It's going to be worth the wait. It really is.
Yeah, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, by this time fall and stuff like next year, hopefully we're in a much better place. So like you said, everyone who can enjoy the experience of seeing it in person. But yeah, man, is there anything else that you wanted to say to the fans out there to kind of wrap things up?
I would say, being that I have so much love and respect for the horror fans and for the Halloween fans, and how I've noticed con after con, fan after fan, what good people horror fans are, I would say, like really embrace that. I would love, because this is a really bifurcated time. This is a time when people, family members aren't talking to each other because of their political viewpoints, and it's good that we're seeing that this actually exists, so I would say, listen to each other and honor the fact that, some people use different parts of their brain to process things like politics and religion. And if you're using different parts of your brain to process something, trying to convince somebody of your point of view, unless you understand how their brain works, is futile. So I would suggest that, we agree to disagree, and we focus on facts, and we focus on loving and respecting each other. Because, and again, I'm appealing to your fans, who are my fans, who are the people that we know because we know them. We know who these people are. We know how their hearts work. We know what kind of people they are. So I would say, let's focus on, especially in this challenging time, let's be kind to each other. Let's be safe. Let's be respectful of each other's parameters and boundaries. And if someone's belief system is different than ours, let's honor them for that. They get to have that right, So that would be my parting, from the bottom of my heart, man. I want to see, if the world could operate like freaking horror conventions, we wouldn't need military. There would be no lawsuits. It'd be a great, beautiful world. Lawyers would hate it, but
yeah, no, I think I agree with you 100%. It's, especially right now, it's just something we just need, a lot of positivity, understanding, and so I agree with you, 100% on that. So, but hey, man, thank you again. This is third time having you back on the show. It's always fascinating talking to you and getting your your answers on these different things and your perspectives. So it's always fun having you come back on the show. I always appreciate it.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well, man. It's I look forward to seeing your final edit, and and getting the response to the fans. That's the fun part too, is getting the response from fans. Like when you get it out into the world, and then then people start lighting up my Instagram, and it's awesome, man. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. So thank you, man. It's great to see you again.
Great to see you too, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Hi, this is James Jude Courtney, Michael Myers, aka The Shape and Halloween Kills, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat. Don't forget to subscribe, guys.